All right, guys, you got your boy Jet Stinger here today, and today we are back with some Reverse 1999, and today I'm here to present you guys with a newbie player guide. Now, this is going to be broken up into multiple videos because there's a lot to talk about for new players. So if you guys want to have any particular questions, feel free to ask me in a comment section below. That would actually be helpful because I will be answering any and all newbie player questions, just in case if you have those questions that you don't want to wait till the video drops, because the video may drop within the next couple of days depending on how much time I have to actually record and talk about all the different things. So for what it's worth, if you don't see your proper topic being brought up in this video, this is just gonna give you like a basic understanding of what you should do first when starting the game. And yeah, just ask, and from there we'll just go from there. But anyway, let's start with what is the first thing you should do. Now, when you log into the game, of course, it's going to have you do some tutorial stuff, and then it's going to have you go over to the gacha. So first things first, we will talk about the gacha because I know that's what a lot of people tend to ask first, is how good is the gacha, what are the rates, and all that good stuff. So what are the rates of the gacha? The gacha has a 70 pull based system, so it's cheaper than most other games from what I've played, like Honkai Star Rail being 90 at max, Wuthering Waves being 80 at max. It's ours is 70 at max, which is pretty good. We have a 1.5% chance to also hit a 6-star, and we have a guarantee that's assuming that you are on a guarantee, which is going to be tied to the 50-50 system, which I'll talk about in just a second, which is a 2.3% chance. And we have a soft pity system built in at 60 pulls. So after your 60th pull, your rate will go from 1.5 to 4%. And if you still have not obtained a 6-star character after your 60th pull, you'll keep pulling, and then that rate will continuously go up. Now, what this basically means is that you probably will never actually see the 70 number. From my time of playing the game, and I've spent a lot of resources in this game from pulling, I've never actually ever hit 70 ever. I think the closest I've ever really gotten is maybe like 68. But I've never actually directly hit the 7th mark. So what you should always do is you can either just pull it to 60 and then just start throwing singles at the banner. This at least saves you a couple clear drops, but if you don't really just want to save, you just kind of want to get the character, you don't really care, that you could just go pull for the 70 and then it doesn't really matter. You might even potentially walk out with a double that way, which that has happened to some people, and that's also happened to me before. So it really just depends on what you really want to do per se. But again, if you just want to just hit a 6-star, just throw singles. But if you want to maybe risk it, be a little bit fancy with it, then maybe you might potentially just walk out with something good like a double. And yeah, so how does the 50-50 system work? Well, obviously it's very similar to, you lose the character, the next time you get a 6-star, you get that character. But there are different stipulations in Reverse 1999. For example, this banner right here is known as a standard event banner. Yearning of the Water is its own special banner type, and this is just a standard rerun. So what this means is, if I were to lose a 50-50 on this character right here, who is known as Kipperina, if I lose this on her, that means that I can only guarantee myself on either a Kipperina or the next character that shares the exact same event type banner as her. Now, if you're wondering how does this tie in with the AC collab, unfortunately, you will not be able to lose to Kipperina, then guarantee yourself an Ezio. That's not how those banners work. Since it's Assassin's Creed and it's a collaboration, it is a special type of banner. So both Ezio and Cassandra's banners will effectively start your pity off at 0 out of 70 with your 50-50s active. So there's really no real way to kind of just maneuver it around. We do have other special banners like this, like our true limited characters, which I'll talk about later on. Those banners are also the exact same way, where you start at 0 out of 70 pulls, and then of course your 50-50 will be active. So there's that. The same case can be said for Yearning in the Water. Yearning in the Water is the exact same way. So if I were to lose to one of these two featured characters, That means the next time I get a 6-star, it's not going to be able to go for Kipperina because it's only for Yearning of the Water unless it's specifically stated otherwise. Sometimes they may just completely wipe the banner just completely clean, which of course you have to kind of just look into your details for all that information just to make sure. And then of course standard rerun characters actually it's just a standard rerun, so you pretty much you pretty much is the same. It's pretty much the same thing where you lose, but you can actually go for Kip Arena then for that way, because this banner is not particularly any sort of specialty with it. It's just characters like it's just like special banners like these, Yearning Underwater. I think Ripples in the Ripples in the Water, which is the Euphoria banner. Those also have the very same pity ruling as well. So for what it's worth, it is what it is on that. Anywho, so TLDR, when you first get in and you start to pull for Ezio, because I'm sure most of you are eagerly preparing for Ezio, pull him and then you can try to get him. The cool thing is about the Assassin's Creed collab that isn't well, it was mentioned in the stream if you watched the stream, is his pity is actually way less than the standard pity. So if we're really looking at it, this is assuming you lose to 50-50, you're looking at about 120 to maybe 130 pulls to get Ezio. However, the banner in the Assassin's Creed collab is different, where the pity is actually only 100 because you're guaranteed a copy of Ezio and or Cassandra when her banner goes live on the 20th of August to get them straight up. So no matter what you do, you'll be able to claim them as an award. This also does not interfere with your current pity total. So this technically means if you were to commit maybe even 10 or maybe 20 more pulls, you can get them to P1 right then and there, which is actually pretty cool. So that's actually a really nice thing that you can do for those banner types. So if you do want to just push a little bit more just to get the P1, I don't blame you, because it's only 10 to 20 pulls after the fact. You can even potentially walk out with a P3 Ezio if you win your 50-50 between the 60-70 pool. Claim your copy from 100 for P1 and get your another copy from there, and you end up with P2, my bad. But P2 will actually be a pretty big boost for overall boost for most characters, but we'll talk about portraits and everything a little bit different. So once you pull your Ezio and you get everything established, what should you do next? Simply just start tackling the story. Go as far as you can with the story, and for a good starting team, I'm just going to pick a random stage here. A good starting team that you always really want to do is like, you want to go like a DPS, a support, and then a healer. Your assist can be whatever you want to be until you really start being able to use a full 4-man team, which won't be until a little bit later, but you can traditionally add like another support. You can add like a sustain, which is someone that can prevent you from dying. I'll go over role types in a different video, but you can go Ezio, Sonato, and LaSource. You can get LaSource relatively easily because she's like a 3-star, so she should spook you at any given moment, and you start with Sonato simply just because she's your starting character that you get. So you can go Ezio, Sonato, LaSource as a good starting team. We also do have access to a free Euphoria selector, which is actually going to tie into building more specific teams later on down the line. So you can use that to either go for Melania, which is a good partner for Ezio for ultimate setups, or you can use that for a different potential character for a different type of team that you'd want to work on in the future. It really just depends on what you end up pulling. Again, I'll make a video at some point talking about the potential loss of 50-50s that you can get, and then you can kind of just go from there. But if you wanted to kind of improve this team, you can actually spend $1 literal and you can actually get this character right here, which is known as Yensei. Get this character because she's a fantastic 5-star healer. She's easily one of the best 5-star sustains in the game, with a really good healthy shield that she can provide. She has some really good healing. She can also provide a really good shield based off of her HP total. So that's something that you could do if you don't want to try to risk it with LaSource, because LaSource is kind of good in the beginning, but she falls off pretty quickly, like mid to late game. But Yensei stays relevant throughout the entirety of the game. You can even use her in late game content and still do a pretty good enough job if you weren't able to pull a healer. So again, the whole core of what you want to do is of course, work on your characters in the meantime, and then go until you hit a wall. Once you hit a wall, this is when you want to kind of start kind of investing into your characters by going into the resource tab. This is something you should do every single day. Go as far as you can with this until you cannot beat it, but make sure you're doing this every single day. You get 2 free and in-depth chances, so that means it doesn't cost you any stamina. And then these are the things that you farm for your character leveling materials. So it's like, this is your dust, this is your sharpened bodies. You can farm these to level up your character, which is going to be very important. Harvest Prime is also going to be a thing that you farm. This is actually something that's kind of a one-time farm, and I do recommend farming this quickly once you get the ability to do the final stage, because what this does is this is going to be tied to your wilderness, which I'll talk about later on. But one of the key things there is that you want to simply just kind of go until you can, of course, get your characters up to a decent level, and then you kind of can go from there, just continue to progress. One thing you should also be paying attention to is the newbie task awards from your beginning of the tale. Make sure you're checking these off as much as you can, because you get a lot of good resources which can actually help you build up characters a little bit faster, and you also get some good starting cubes for the occasion. You get a special garment for Sonato for, you know, just for doing it, which is actually a pretty nice cool looking garment if you simply just progress your stuff there. So just kind of just go on from there. It stops at rank 9, which you get about a multi's worth of all this stuff, and you can just kind of go from there. So once you do that, let's talk about wilderness. Wilderness is a special little city-based thing that you can kind of build. And the cool thing about wilderness is that you can basically design it to whatever you want it to be. Like, you can get a bunch of different cool buildings and materials from specific materials that you can get from just playing the game. There's a buyable resource from like event shops, or even sometimes they give you little resources to get this. You can also use clear drops to buy it, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. But you can just basically do this. And the further you get into the story, the more you can develop your wilderness, which means you can get higher percent. The more buildings and the more things that you can place, like cool little decorations and stuff like this, to really make your wilderness lively and look nice, you get more for your dust belt and your Shopardani markets, which will get you more passive resources over the course of time. That's something that you can actually do over the course of time, though. You don't have to try to rush to the maximum out super quick. You can also share codes if you'd like in the comment section below. So if a new player wants to see your code, they can also see your code. You can also visit other players' wilderness as well if you add them as a friend. That way you can see what they're looking like or what they built up to. Another thing that you can do here, you can also place characters here. And what placing characters here does is that basically, over the course of time, the little pop-ups will pop up. You see this little thing right here. These will pop up to allow you to build trust with the characters. You can also get trust just by simply using the character in teams. But if you don't ever really need to use the character, or you just don't want to farm their trust specifically, you can just throw them in wilderness, and then that's good enough. And you just kind of go from there. You know, you can see what the characters are doing. Sometimes they have little special interactions as well, where, you know, you might be able to see them do something a little cool. So for what it's worth, it really just depends on what you have here. But make sure when you have the ability to farm Harvest Primes, you're looking to build up your stuff. So build up your dust towers to the max, build up your sharper diamonds to the max, and build up your Pledio hole to its max, because this is going to allow you to build up and farm up the high tier materials once you start getting into the mid to end game investment. So that's one of the things that you should be doing as soon as humanly possible. So yeah. So from there, once you do that, you can also kind of mess around with the event stuff. Just kind of push it as much as you can. I recommend at least trying to get your team to I2 level 50 before you try doing the event stuff. The reason being is because you can farm usually 9 times out of 10, or well, I should say 10 out of 10. There's a special event cube that's tied to the main featured character, which in this case it'd be Ezio. There will be a special cube that you could farm. for them, and that's going to be their best in slot cube, so you don't have to spend any additional resources to get their cube. Like, you don't have to pull for it or craft or anything of that nature. So make sure you are doing the collaboration event stuff as well to get it. So you can see it here. This is the one from the patch that we're currently in, but tomorrow we'll be in the Assassin's Creed collab, or depending on when this video goes live. You'll have this sort of material, and you'll be able to buy a lot of really cool things, such as an exclusive cube, gluttony, which is a very important resource that allows you to amplify your cubes to its max level, which is basically from A1 to A5. Sometimes you get a cool little soundtrack. You get some high tier materials, some unilogs, crystal cassius, which are also another important thing you should get, because that allows you to take a character from R9 to R10, which is very important. You get things like brief cacophonies, which is great for resonance. You get sharpened dandies, enlightenments, which you can use to level up cubes. There's a lot of things that you can get here. So I do recommend farming it as much as you possibly can, and then just farm, you know, the stage. It's unfortunately ended now because I can't even show you where to farm, but you probably just farm the highest stage you can farm that's consistent, and then you just throw on your auto and you just kind of cook from there. So there's that. Sometimes you get event reruns, and what event reruns is basically just the exact same event that it was before, but this allows you to get the awards that you missed out on previously. So if you never obviously done the patch, that means you get all the clear drops that you missed. You get the exclusive awards, the exclusive stuff, like, you know, you basically get everything that's from that shop. I think the only thing that's not included is the cube, which it's normally thrown into your it's thrown into the bank, and I think it's also thrown into the pawn shop. Actually, no, the fragment shop. My bad. And then this is where you'd be able to get your cubes of choice. So this is basically what you'd be able to get them. You do get a 30% discount on most cubes you get, which is pretty nice. Some you have to fork up to 300, which is completely fine. But for what it's worth, still a really, really good cube. Still really, really good cubes as you can get from here. And this is claimed from doing your Phenuma analysis. That's why I recommended doing Phenuma analysis every single day, because you can get this material. I believe if you're able to do the final stage, which I don't think you'll be able to do until you hit like Insight 3, which may take you about maybe a week or two, you can get 300 to 210. Basically, you get 10 a day, not counting any sort of like promotional bonuses. Sometimes they have like double analysis events where they give you double the award or increased awards. So it's either going to take you about 3 weeks to a month for you can exchange one of these cubes. But once you get them, it'll be fairly worth it. One thing you have to pay very close attention to is polarizations. Polarizations are kind of rare, so make sure you're not just leveling cubes willy-nilly, and you kind of don't want to spread your resources out too thin with those. So yeah, 5-star cubes, not a lot of them are super great, honestly, but the ones that traditionally come from anecdote stories, which I don't think there's any that's going to be happening in the Assassin's Creed collab, but there's special anecdote stories which revolve around a specific character that kind of dive a little bit deeper in the lore. There's no real combat. It's, well, sometimes it's combat, but very, very rarely it's combat. But there's going to be these little stages where you just send in a bunch of characters, and then you can just have them collect resources, and then you'll get a award of points based off of those, and then you can get the cube from there. And 9 times out of 10, those cubes are actually very good. It's actually best in slot for specific characters too, so that's actually really, really nice there. But unfortunately, those cubes don't get added into the shop, which is a little bit disappointing, because again, those are some really good 5-star cubes people can get and they can invest into for cheaper alternatives, because 5-star investment to 6-star investment is a little bit cheaper. So that is that. But that is going to be the general TLDR about what you should do when first starting the game. Is you want to roll till you get Ezio, push the story for as much as you can. If you hit a wall, then simply go to start working on your team, and you can just kind of go from there. And then you just keep progressing until you get to, like, you know, the other things like Limbo, which I'll talk about in a bit later on. Next up, I want to talk about is the characters themselves. So the game revolves around an effective 6 Aphelios type. where we have mineral, star, spirit, intelligence, beast, and plant. Your natural affiliates, which right here are going to be beast, plant, star, and mineral, and these are the elements that they're strong against. Your primals are going to be spirit and intelligence, and they basically are strong against each other but neutral against everything else. So one of the key things that you should know about when playing the game is, of course, what is the damaging types. Should you always invest in a stronger affiliates type for story or in just other game modes? And I'll just kind of go over that with you guys and talk about the key things you have to look out for, such as cubes, insights, and all that stuff. So I'm going to just kind of give you guys a basic character breakdown. And then from there, I think I'll end the video. And then I'll start talking about some of the more advanced things, such as like archetypes, team building, and all that stuff. But anyway, so the character's effective element is always shown at the top, which this character is a star element, which means they have a stronger affinity against mineral characters, which is pretty good. And plant has a stronger affinity into them, which means you take 30% more damage, and you deal 30% more damage of characters of those types. So to identify a character's attacking type, it's tied between either mental or reality. When that character is reality, they have this little hand symbol right there, or you can just simply click their skill. Their characters really don't deviate between like having a mix of either mental or reality. Their kit is pretty much always going to be either reality or mental. Now, a lot of people may ask, does this matter? Not necessarily, honestly. There are specific stages where it is prioritized to have a stronger affinity of something else. Like some characters may take stronger reality damage as opposed to mental, but that's very far and few between, so I really can't even say that that's relatively important. So the effective attacking type, like reality or mental, is not very important, not at all. So I don't really recommend that you hyper focus on, oh, I gotta get a mental DPS because I need it just in case. It's really not that important. There's some synergies where it focuses on specific, reality and mental characters. For example, there are some characters that synergize really well with reality, and there's some characters that synergize really well with mental. But again, that's more so on a use base in specific case. It's not, overall affecting content, so to speak. So there's that. Bond is just going to be your trust system with the character, which is what I talked about in Wilderness. You basically can max out your bond by either throwing them into Wilderness, having them on your home screen, interacting with them, using them in stages, and you can build them up over the course of time. And what Bond does is it gives you a lot of cool little awards for the character, such as like a little bit of tidbits about their lore. They unlock cool little voice lines and stuff like that. So that's really just what it does. You can also get some clear drops from maxing out their bonds too. You get clear drops for each milestone that I believe it's 40, 60, 80, and 100, I believe, that you get the clear drops awards from. So there's that. First thing is we got to talk about is the insights. So insights is basically what unlocks these skills right here. Now, some characters are relatively simple. I know this one looks like a whole dictionary, but this is a more of a complicated character. I just picked my first character. But basically, when you rank up a character, which is when you get enough of the to level when you get enough of the materials to level them up to max, and then you farm up the stuff you needed for their insight, then they unlock a passive, and this passive is of course directly added to their kit, and then they go from there. The insight 2, 100% of the time, insight 2 is usually just a stat increase of some sort. So they get attack, critical attack, critical damage, critical rate, damage dealt up, or HP. It's just a stat increase. And in Insight 3 is also something that they can get as either gonna tie into their kit or just other additional bonuses. For Insight 2 to Insight 3, it can definitely take a bit of time to farm to, and you also need a lot of resources. What I really recommend that you should do is not this. I know you see my character is level 60 max and max portrait. Don't do this, okay? Don't. Your real recommended goal you should always aim to be when you're considering a character that's like done and available for in-game content is level 30. If you can get to Insight 3 level 30, stop right there. Stop. The real reason why is because from going to 30 to 60, it gets fairly pricey. Look at this, is basically going to take out half of my available dust and about a good 1/3 of my sharpened Donnies after, right? This is going to take this is going to take a lot to actually get back. So I don't ever really recommend that you do, because look at the stat differences between level 30 to level 60. While there is some decent attack in there, not too much on the HP. There's only about 300 HP. Not too much on the defenses either, but you really don't have to go to level 60 until you feel comfortable enough that you are gonna not need it to build other characters. I recommend level 30 the most because you are gonna be more than likely building other characters. You're gonna be progressing yourself to do other things. So trying to go from I0 level 1 to I3 level 60 is going to cost so much of your resources that your other characters in your team are going to generally suffer. So I don't really recommend that you take them to 60 when you're first starting out. But once you kind of get to the point to where you're not really stressed for leveling material, or you're not really building anybody else, this is when you can kind of start fine-tuning your team to then have them go to level 60. That's my personal recommendation. Portrays is the game's dupe system. The one thing about dupes in this game is that it functionally does never change the character. What it does basically is it just adds more things to what they already had. So essentially, when you pull a character at P0, they already have everything that they would need. They don't get any sort of like crazy additional things where it's like, oh, if you get this character to P1, they get defense shred suddenly. You know what I mean? Like in Honkai Star Rail, for example. You don't get that. You get things like modifier increases. You get improvements to the buffs or debuffs that they already had. Easier quality of life when using that character, but it's already in their native kit. That's why most people say you do not need dupes for Reverse 1999. You only ever really go dupes if you generally really love the character, or maybe you're a whale. if you want to spend some money, that's on you. That's completely on you. But yeah. Next up is your resonances. Resonances is it's strange thing. So resonance is your way to customize your character to the way you want. Now, thankfully, there is guides everywhere which resonance routes you should take for the character, because this isn't something you just kind of want to throw random pieces on, because you kind of obviously want to gear your character to the best of their ability. So you want to kind of use things that will give them the best for their stats. So this is something that you can actively do for your character. Go, oh yeah, I can do this for my character, and go from there to there. So that is something that you should do. Also, another key thing you should always do is stop at resonance level 9 or stop at resonance level 10. Resonance level 10 gives you this last little grid line right here. It makes your grid a little bit bigger. I believe I have a character that I can show you that's still at resonance 9. You can kind of see the difference. As you can see, the grid looks a little bit smarter at resonance 9, but resonance 10 is the de facto stopping point. You want to go resonance 10 because that maximizes your grid, and that's again enough for some good stat lines. So that's at least something that you can do. But since crystal caskets are needed for resonance 10 and you may not have those just yet, just stop at 9 for now, and then when you start having the ability to get to resonance 10 from getting crystal caskets, either you can do limbo, which is, again, I'll talk about that in a different video because this video is getting a little bit on the longer side. You could do things like limbo, you can do things like bind them from the special shop. You can sometimes get crystal caskets from events, as I showed you earlier, and then you can just take a character to R10 and then you're done. Another thing that's added from the recent patches is resonance patterns. Resonance patterns is a way for you to actually make your character a little bit stronger by giving them additional stats. Now, you traditionally can pick between these effects based off of what they have. You know, they have these specific effects that you can pick and choose which ones. Traditionally, the game will tell you which one is the best option for that character, but it doesn't help to consult with any sort of people in the community that you may know. Just ask, or either leave a comment here and say, hey, should I grab this for this character? Traditionally speaking, though, this is the most recommended one that you should use, and then it basically enhances the primary piece of that character. So if we go over to the resin patterns, you can see the piece right here, this little piece right here, then it's going to enhance that piece. So all you got to do is find it, which I believe it is right here. This is your special piece that every character gets. Every character gets a special piece that comes with a bunch of different bonuses. Always slot this one. Always find a way to fit it into your grid. Never not leave without this. But once you get the resonance pattern for it, it doesn't change the size of the piece. It just makes it look different. That's really just it. So you don't have to change your grid or anything after the fact. So that's really just that. Next up is cubes. I wanted to talk about cubes last because this one is a bit of a loaded one. Cubes are traditionally what you get from either events, the shop I showed you earlier, and there's a lot of variety that you can do with cubes for specific characters or specific comps. 9 times out of 10, I say 9 times out of 10, when they have the character's face on the cube, it's their best in slot. But sometimes that's not the case. Again, hence the 9 out of 10. So if you see the character's face or you see that it benefits their main types and everything, 9 times out of 10 it's for them. For example, this is Liang Yu's face, which then you would think, okay, if I had Liang Yu, then that means it's best in slot for her, which in this case would be true. However, this is one of Tooth Fairy's best in slot Beyond Wonderland, but it does not have Tooth Fairy's face on it. As you can see where I'm going with this. So that's that rare 1 out of 10 opportunity where it's not their face, but it is considered as one of their better slots. But for the most part, the newer cubes that release usually have the characters' faces on them. So it usually has their faces on it. But again, there's that rare instance where they may not have their face. And what you can do is, of course, you can max these out by using your polarizations. You need LF, MF, and I think the gold polarization as well to get this to level 60. These can be quite costly to get to level 60. It's not the materials, it's more so the polarizations. Polarizations can take quite a bit of time to get over the course of time because they're not as available as other materials. You can actually either redeem them from doing things like limbo and all that stuff and your shop from pulling resources, or you can buy them by using in real money and stuff like that. But it does take a while to actually get them invested. So be patient. Don't really try to force the process. I recommend stopping at 50 for most cubes because the gold material can take a while to get. So you can at least get 50, which is at least most of their stats. And for each time you rank up the cube from 20 to 40 to 40 to 50, 50 to 60, you get this improved stat line here. And the game's dupe system, which is the amplification, you can use these things called gluttonies. Gluttonies are awards from things like Main's Bulletin, events, special shops. You can also buy them if you need to. You can get a free gluttony from your battle pass if you choose to go the premium battle pass route. Basically it gives you it acts as an effective dupe. So you need 4 gluttonies total to max out the cube, but then you get maxed out effect of the cube. Now, what you should max, honestly, it really depends. I would say it's best that you invest in your DPS cube first, because, for example, this is my Liang Yu, mine is level 5, so you want to do it for your main DPSs first. You want to, because that way you get a stronger DPS for the regard, but it's not even required or necessary, to be honest. If you don't have the means to just, instantly A5, or you're getting gluttonies over the course of time, just take your time. I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter, but in most cases, it should either be level 1 or a level 5. If you want to just hold on to your gluttonies and say, okay, I don't know which one I want to invest into, that's completely fine. And of course, it's completely up to you. If you want to invest in like a healer cube first. I mean, by all means, there's actually been a few instances where I've invested in a healer cube instead because I felt that they were a better performing option for me. So there's also instances where I think about investing into other cubes like sustains. Like I'm thinking about maxing this one because I do like this cube a lot. Actually, this is actually a very good cube for its bonuses. So I could potentially take this to A5 if I wanted to. If I had an excess amount of gluttonies, I probably would, but I'm going to be saving mine for Ezio, who releases, I believe, in a few more days or either tomorrow, depending on when this video gets uploaded. But yeah, but this is what I'm going to stop the video at. I hope that was enough to kind of help you guys understand some of the key things about Reverse 1999. If you have any additional questions, again, make sure you ask me in the comment section below because I will try my best to answer any and all questions regarding the game, regarding things you should do if it wasn't included in this video. Of course, there will be other units or other videos that will come out during the course of the collab where I explain things. I'm going to be making team guides for Ezio. I'm going to be making archetype guides to explain what they do so new players can understand. And I'm going to be making a lot of content going forward because there's so much that we have to talk about. And of course, there's a lot of newbies that are coming into the game. But last thing I want to say to you guys is welcome to Reverse 1999. I hope you guys do learn to enjoy the game. I hope you involve yourself with the community. And if you want to join the community Discord, I will leave a link to it in the comment section below. Or again, if you want to directly message me, my Discord is in the description box as well. But this is going to be it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.